Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be making a dish called Shish Baraq. That literally translates into soldier's caps. And why is it called that? Because it's basically a lamb ravioli. The dough is made into a circular ravioli, which I'll show you in a bit, and they're paper thin so you can see through into the filling. It's a beautiful dish. You then make it with a yogurt sauce. My grandmother never made this dish, full disclosure, her sisters did, because it was such a pain in the butt to make. So I decided to figure out how to make my own version of it, and so this is the version I'm going to be making today. So to start, you're going to need to make your dough. Okay, so in order to make your dough, you first need about 1.5 cups of flour. This is going to sound oddly specific. 9 tablespoons of ice cold water, doesn't need to be filtered, and salt. So I'm going to go ahead, I've got my salt, my flour, add my water. I just want to mix it. I like to do things by feel. Just keep mixing. So you get a nice dough. Now you might need to add a little bit more water as it progresses, so I always keep a little extra on hand. You can start to see it's coming together. Okay. All right, so add a little bit more water. It's about 1 tablespoon at a time. And just fully incorporate it until you get the dough consistency. Okay, it's not starting to come together. Still a little bit crumbly. Keep going. Now this is an eggless dough, so it's not like a traditional pasta dough. And it makes it really easy to fold things in. It's pretty flavorless. The only flavor you're really getting is from the salt. Okay, so now we have our dough. We're going to start on our filling. So, while the dough is resting, I'm going to get out my spices. The first thing I'm going to need is coriander. We call this kizbara. This is the seed of cilantro. Allspice, cinnamon, pomegranate molasses, and all of these things are linked on my website, foodienomial.com. So if you're interested in getting some of these ingredients, please feel free to go there. So this is a staple ingredient, pomegranate molasses. It's called dibs romen. And white onion, salt, and olive oil. And our special key ingredient, lamb. Now this is beautifully ground up lamb, very fine. We're going to saute it and make the filling. The other things you're going to need are pine nuts, some butter, and that's it. So let me go get started. So I'm of the opinion that the best spices are fresh ground. So you see I have whole coriander beans, whole allspice beans. So I take a coffee grinder and I grind them fresh. So I grind a lot of coriander, kizbara, because this recipe calls for a lot of coriander. And I also ground my allspice. So you can see I have a couple tablespoons there. And then I have fresh ground cinnamon because I can't grind my own cinnamon. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to chop up my onion. Got my compost bowl ready. And while I'm chopping that, I'm going to turn the pan on to high to start warming that up. Then I'm going to add my onions. Now, this dish, it's a really hearty dish. It's a very warm, comforting dish. And it's something that I only ever had in restaurants or when I've been to Syria to visit my family. So, you know, I base this off of my taste and my memories with this dish. but I absolutely love it. It's something that I enjoy making. My kids enjoy it. It's a yummy ravioli. So chop that up. Let's see what I'm doing. My knife cuts are not perfect by any stretch, but I'm not a chef. This is my home cooking, taught by my mother, my grandmother. They're my grandmother's ancestors before that. Okay, so now I've got my onion chopped. I'm gonna go ahead and add some butter. So I'm just gonna add about a tablespoon of butter and a little bit of olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. Now, the key of this dish, one of the keys of this dish, is to taste as you go. So if you don't get your meat from a butcher that you really, really trust, don't stick it in your mouth, not until it's cooked. I'm sure that the lamb is really, really good, but just trust me, because you don't know what's in there until it's cooked off. I just turned my heat down. Now I'm gonna add my onions. One of the things I'm always telling my kids is, as scary as it can be to work over a hot stove, you can't be afraid of it. It's actually something my dad taught me. Okay, so I'm going to cook these for a few minutes, and then I'm going to add my meat, my spices, my pomegranate molasses, and then finally my pine nuts. Now, fun fact, pine nuts are called snowbar in Arabic, and one fun thing I got to do last time I was in Syria and Lebanon, which was well over a decade ago, was watch the snowbar farmers climb these trees to pick them, and it was amazing. And there's nothing better than absolute fresh pine nuts. Now these ones I get, clearly I did not pick these myself. These are Turkish, and the reason I prefer Turkish over Chinese is because they don't use any metal equipment, and so there's no metal residue that's left on it, which can leave a funky flavor. So I prefer the Turkish ones to the Chinese ones. This is called Sarez Pazari, and they come in really great packets. I order these off Amazon. Again, feel free to go to our website, foodieenomeal.com, and shop any of the links there. Okay. Coming along. Okay, this is softened enough, so I'm going to go ahead and start adding my lamb. And I put it into these chunks. You can use your hands if you want. I'm just doing it like this because I'm being, I don't know, felt like doing it like this today. Just mix it up, put it right in. Okay. You can also just throw the whole thing in and start mixing it just like that. Okay. There is no garlic in this recipe. There's not a ton of savory dishes that use garlic in Middle Eastern cuisine. I'm not going to say there's none. Definitely we like garlic, but I wouldn't say it's a prominent featured piece. Like hummus, definitely. Baba ganoush, definitely. Shish Baraq, not so much. Sucuk, which is a lamb sausage, definitely. And that uses a full bottle of red wine. Okay. So now we have added our lamb. I'm going to start getting that cooking. Mix it in, get all those onions. And again, my heat is at medium-high. Cooking. You don't want to burn anything. crank the heat a little bit. Now I'm going to start adding my spices. So first, I'm going to add a healthy pinch of salt. Okay. Then I'm going to add pomegranate molasses. This is one of my favorite ingredients to cook with. Okay. I keep everything out just in case I need more. So I'm going to start with salt and pomegranate molasses and start mixing it up. Already it's starting to smell like deliciousness. Okay. The reason that I'm making my stuffing right now is because I need it to be completely cool before I fill the ravioli. And then while the ravioli is drying, we're going to make our yogurt sauce. And for that, you're going to need an egg white, optional, a pint of full-fat yogurt. I have tried this recipe with low-fat yogurt. Doesn't work. Gonna do it, go for the gold. Tastes not as good. More coriander. And another optional piece to add is mint. And you definitely also need lemon juice. So we'll make all that up as I'm cooking this filling down. Okay, now I'm gonna add my spices. I'm gonna add a lot of fresh coriander. A lot of fresh allspice. Now I'm going to start to add my pine nuts. I don't want to add this whole bag, obviously, but I add maybe 2 tablespoons of pine nuts. Of course, it would help if I didn't drop them everywhere. Again, you don't have to add pine nuts if you don't want to. I think it adds a lot to the flavor and to enhance the texture of the dish because you're putting soft meat inside of a soft ravioli, and the pine nuts add a nice little crunch. This is a dish my kids really enjoy, although they're tiny, so they enjoyed it last time. But something I enjoy making as well. Okay. Now my meat is cooked, my spices are incorporated. I'm going to taste it to see if it needs anything more. Needs more salt. Needs more allspice. Oh, and I gotta add the cinnamon. So in the Middle East, we call this filling, we call it habra. Habra just means like stuffing. Definitely taste that pomegranate coming through. Okay. Let's give it another taste. I think it needs more coriander. But again, this is to your taste. So I'm making this dish to mine. And I like a lot of punch of flavor. more taste. Okay, now removing that from the heat. Now let's go get our ravioli on. Now normally I would use my KitchenAid, but today I'm going to show you how to roll it out by hand. So this is what our dough looks like. It's pretty malleable. So what I'm going to do is cut it in half and start rolling it. Now the idea is you want it paper thin, which is really tricky. Okay, so I take my handy dandy bread cutter. I'm just going to start with that. Now I have lightly dusted this surface, and then I just want to roll it out. Let's see. Paper thin is what we're going for. So again, the shape doesn't have to be pretty, doesn't have to be perfect. I can just imagine my grandmother laughing as I make this. I'm thinking of all of the family members before her who made this dish for their families. Such a comforting thought. Okay, so currently that's how thick it is. Way too thick. It almost wants to pass. If you've heard of the window pane test, it has to pass the window pane test. The window pane test is you hold it up, hold the dough up, and you should be able to see light through. That's how thin. All right, so I'm gonna keep rolling and come right back. Okay, so now you can see I've got my dough. It's pretty thin. And remember, this isn't even half the dough. So this is how you do it when you're rolling it out by hand. I'm gonna show you how to do the rest using the KitchenAid. Okay, so we're gonna do this two ways. I do actually have a ravioli maker, but again, not everybody does. So I'm gonna show you how to do it by hand and with your ravioli maker, if you happen to have one. I imagine my grandmother probably would have made this dish a lot more had she had these tools. But meat was always a very expensive commodity. Okay, so best practices. You want to make sure that you're always starting on 1, and we're going to go all the way up to 7 or 8 on this level. So first thing you do, turn it on. Hopefully it turns on. Come on. There we go. Flatten it out. Shove it in. A couple of times on each number so I can ensure that I'm getting that level of flatness. So I'll show you what it looks like in a sec. Okay, so now I have it set up in my ravioli maker. I'm gonna put some filling in. Scoop it around both sides. And then I twist, twist. Nope, don't come undone. It's very tricky. All right, we're just gonna do it the old school way because this is super annoying for me. I like it the old school way better. Okay. It's caught every damn time. Okay, let's get rid of this. All right. That attempt failed. So now what I'm going to do is I've got 2 sheets. I know you see 3, but we're just using these 2. I'm just going to spoon some filling. This is the old school way. So, okay, just a little bit more. Okay, then I take some cold water and I wet all around the dough, making sure to keep that filling within the wet spots. Okay, just like this. Everybody needs a little practice in the kitchen. Okay, so then I'm gonna take this I'm going to start pinching it down, just like that. Yep, on that piece, there's a little bit of ravioli filling that is popping up, but that's okay. It's okay. And you really want to press down, try and prevent any air bubbles. Okay. Then I take my ravioli cutter. Okay. And voila. Now I put it on a parchment, or a cell mat in this case. Okay. And then we're going to dry them out in the oven on 220 Fahrenheit for about 10 minutes. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I'll be back. All right. So this is a perfect shish baraq. It's got see-through. It's thin. It's beautiful. So now my oven is preheating. I'm gonna pick out, you can reuse your dough about one more time. So you wanna pick out all the filling that got in there. Okay. Set that aside. And you can try and roll it and reuse again. It's really only good for 1 or 2 rolls. So once we get this rolled out, we can fill it again. I would say this recipe makes, you can make about 24 shish baraq if you're really careful. There's no way in hell I'm gonna eat 24, so I'm not gonna re-roll. But I did get about 10 raviolis today, and that's pretty good. So then I'm gonna dry them out, and then I'm gonna make the yogurt sauce later. For the remaining chabra that you have left, if you get to use it all, great. But for the remaining chabra that you have left, I recommend freezing it because, as you saw, the dough is silly easy to make, and it's a super simple recipe, and as long as you have it on hand, super easy to just whisk it up. So that's what I'm gonna do while my ravioli are drying. All right, so I'll be making the yogurt sauce in a part 2. But if you are wanting to just get to the fun part, you take a pint of yogurt, you whisk it on high or as fast and hard as you can for 4 minutes, adding the juice of 1.5 lemons and 1 egg white. Then you mix in a lot of coriander and salt until you like the flavor, and then you cook it on the stove for about 10 minutes. When you're ready, add your ravioli. It will only take a few minutes for them to cook up, and serve it warm with fresh mint. And that's it. I'll be making the yogurt sauce at another time, part 2 video, so stay tuned. Please click like and subscribe, and look forward to cooking with you soon.